And Chris, you have no issues with power outages. We see you just fine. I know we've been covering these power outages. But let's talk about the power that's been charged into the GOP side of the presidential race. Your reaction to the speech?
Well, I think he laid down the fight here. He said the line is, I'm not going to be for nation building overseas. I'm going to build bridges here at home, not over there. It's a direct charge against the neocons and the piggish money behind them right now. I mean, you talk about big money being spent against them. Let's lay out who these people are. Let's not just talk about ads as if they're coming from God. There's a rotten crowd out there that is very hawkish in the Republican Party, wants to fight more wars. They want to do more regime change, more nation building. Let's go through the list. They wanted to knock off Iraq. Then they wanted to knock off Egypt. They wanted to knock off Syria. They want to knock off Iran. They already did Libya. It's really worked well for us, hasn't it? This continual effort to knock countries apart, create instability and chaos, and then say we're going to create Western-style pro-Israeli democracies. It's all nonsense. It's always been nonsense. I think the Republican voter out there, not the piggish money people, but the regular voter is not going to support. Look at the latest poll we have from Pennsylvania, a regular state, pretty much a bit Democratic, but not too Democratic a state. Rand Paul's beating Hillary Clinton there by a point. That tells me all this money, this piggish money, that's a term we used in the 60s for the hawks, all this money that's trying to create a right-wing, hawkish Republican nominee for president may not sit too well with the average Republican voter, because the cloth coat regular Republicans who send their kids to war are not the ones who pay for these ads. They're totally different people. The ones who send their kids to war and come home maimed and wondering what the hell they were doing it for, those people are not impressed by these goddamn ads. I wouldn't even talk about ads, and I certainly wouldn't put them on free, Tom. That's what we should stop doing. Stop running right-wing ads for free on our network.
Well, I don't think we can filter out the fact that attack ads started right away.
Who paid for the ads?
So the Foundation for Secure and Prosperous America is the person.
Come on.
Is the group
the
behind
Committee for the Present Danger. They're all front groups. They're hawkish right-wing front groups. Call them what they are. Let's not pretend like some nice people got together and thought we ought to go to war and nation build and knock off another government. That's what we're doing here. And I salute Rand Paul for having the guts to take on this crowd. He may be the only Republican candidate who's doing it, which makes him worth watching.
So as we look at the other issues for Rand Paul and where he stands on the issue, Chris, as we talk about immigration reform, he wants the GOP to abandon their fixation on amnesty, and he favors smaller U.S. military presence overseas, as we've just talked about, opposes this federal ban on marriage equality. So how are his positions going to stack up against other GOP candidates?
Well,
and the only one we have officially in the race is Cruz.
He's not for big government. He's not for a big foreign establishment. He's not for nation building, as he made clear. It comes through, Tom, again and again. He's making clear, I am not George W. Bush, nor the crowd of clowns around him. I think the interesting story that hasn't been told here is the Republican, regular people out there, what Nixon used to call the cloth coat Republicans, not the rich people, they're not hawks. They don't want to go into another Gallipoli or another war like this Iraq war. I'm just looking at a movie. We're having Russell Crowe on tonight. Let's talk about whether Australians got burned with a stupid war in Gallipoli. The American people don't want to go back to another Iraq. They don't want George W. back. And that's one problem that Jeb has. They don't want more of that. They saw the absurdity, the real absurdity of that war. And they don't trust them either when they talk about WMD yet. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting fight. Everybody's a tough on Obama because he's not strong, but when it comes down to we go to another war, that's what they're afraid of, because that is the alternative with Iraq. And with Iran, it goes to war. And I think Republicans are smarter than their leaders. That's what I think.
All right, well, Rand Paul is officially in the race, and as you pointed out tonight, Chris, you have Russell Crowe as a guest. That's a great,
he's coming on tonight.
Great guest.
But we're going to be talking about what you're talking about. I think the big story is the one you're on, Tom, which is Rand Paul. I think it's not like it was back in 2004. It's not like it is. All you have to do is say I'm against the war, and somebody like Rudy Giuliani, it pops up like a cuckoo clock and says, oh, you got to remember 9/11. It's not going to be that simple anymore, because people know there was no connection between 9/11 and going to war in Iraq. It did nothing to keep us safe. It was just more killing, more Islamic hatred, more jihad, more war. And the American people do not think that's the solution.
He did say, though, that it was radical Islam. Chris, you heard that in the speech.
Yeah.
That is the, name it for what it is, that is the biggest threat out there. Yeah. I mean, so he's not afraid to throw down and use that phrase.
No, he's covering himself on that. His philosophy is those guys were wrong.
All right, well, you can catch
We'll
Chris.
hear more of this. We'll hear more. Nation building, Tom, was the magic phrase.
Right.
He knew what he was saying. Let's not go over there and try to create another Jefferson-style democracy in the Middle East. That was a mistake. That was a red herring.
We're going to see you tonight, Chris, on Hardball, 7 p.m. Eastern.
I'm kind of excited about this. I think whatever we disagree with, I think it's great that he's taking on maybe the media here and our understanding of things. And these commercials, I really got a problem with these right-wing people that put these commercials out.
I could kind of tell.
Them again.
I could kind of tell. You're a little.
Well, make a list of who the donors are next time. List the donors every time we run an ad.
Well,
that'd be a good
start.
It was
the Foundation for Secure and Prosperous